creativity and creative problem solving is a huge element toward getting to success, right? Creative problem solving, solving the problem, in your own way that you developed and came up with, that gives you the strength and it gives you the confidence to know that you can solve more problems. Hey, welcome back. It's Rob here with Chapter 16 of Brian Tracy's book, The 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. Chapter 16 is called Unlock Your Inborn Creativity. And this is a key to success as well, because as Brian Tracy points out, each of us is a potential genius if we allow ourselves to dive into that, right? And to open ourselves up to that. And so what he talks about in the beginning of the chapter is that the human brain has like 100 billion cells or more in it, okay? Now, I don't know, I didn't look it up, but I don't know, I'm going to assume that it's accurate. But even if it's not accurate, I do know that there are studies that exist that say that most of us use like 3 to 5% of our brain capacity throughout our lifetime. And so we just have this enormous untapped potential. And I've talked about that in a previous chapter as well. But in this chapter, when we talk about your creativity, he gets specifically into, again, the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of the brain. But he also points out that creative thinking is stimulated by 3 things, okay? The intensely desired goals that we have, all right, the pressing problems that we face, and the focused questions that we ask ourselves, all right? So goals, problems, and questions, right? You need to have strong goals that fire you up, right? We've talked about that in this book as well. We talked about that in the previous book that we did here on the channel, the baseball book, Heads Up Baseball. So having goals is important because that's what fires you up, right? That's what stimulates you. That's what makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. That's what makes you want to go attack the day, right? And so goals are important. We need to set them, okay? Write them down, revisit them every day. I know another author and a sales coach, and now he's just like an entrepreneur coach and a money guy and all these different things. But Grant Cardone, love him or hate him, he is somebody who really sets this into motion because every morning and every night, the first thing he does in the morning when he wakes up and the last thing he does at night before he goes to bed is he writes his goals. All right? That really connects you. I tried that for a while. It wasn't for me. I don't do that, but I revisit my goals daily. I just don't do it at the beginning and at the end and write them down. I've got a little different way of going about it, but I do revisit my goals daily. It's important to do. It locks you in, right? And it gets you keyed into what's important, all right? And that stuff that's important to you is what keeps you going, okay? Pressing problems, all right? Now, this is another one of those frame of mind things where some people, they don't like to talk about problems, or they don't like to consider something a problem. I don't have any issue with using that word, and I use it a lot. And problems and mistakes is another word. That's a totally different subject, but I figured I'd throw it in there because mistakes is another one that's like a hot button word. Some people don't like to use the word mistakes, and like they'll tell you, oh, there are no mistakes. Everything is meant to happen the way. I get it, okay? I understand your point of view, but there are mistakes. I've made them. Right? So at least in my life, I know I've made mistakes, okay? And so I don't have a problem labeling those as mistakes. I also don't have a problem labeling something as a problem because what that does is it helps me find a solution. Yes, a solution to the problem. And creativity and creative problem solving is a huge element toward getting to success, right? Creative problem solving, solving the problem, in your own way that you developed and came up with, that gives you the strength and it gives you the confidence to know that you can solve more problems, right? And problem solving is a thing in life. If you don't like that word problem and you rephrase it a different way, let me know in the comments what words you use. What is your word choice, okay? I want to know. Because to me, a problem, there's no stigma to a problem, okay? I don't consider that a bad word or anything, all right? Because again, problems allow me to come up with solutions, right? And so that's really, a big deal to me. I love to solve problems, and that's one of the reasons that I was a competitive chess player, and I taught chess. I love to solve problems, and chess is full of problems. That's what the basis of the game is calculating and solving problems. Okay, so if you've never played before, you should play. But if you've played before, you know. Now, the third element is focused questions, right? And so the questions that we ask ourselves are a major key to a lot of things, okay? The questions that we ask ourselves can determine our mood. The questions that we ask ourselves often determine what course of action we're going to take, because the way you phrase questions to yourself is important, and the way that you go about answering them is important. And so this to me is, of the three elements that he talks about, this to me is the biggest one, because you can come up with an infinite number of answers to a question, and the way you ask that question has everything to do with it. I won't give a ton of examples here, and maybe I'll kind of think of one off the top of my head here. If you were to ask somebody, what do you think is the issue with XYZ thing, right? Well, the way you've asked that question, you've already put in the fact that there's an issue, right? What do you think is the issue with, well, okay, so the way that is phrased is it's now predisposed to the person who's answering it thinking there's an issue, right? And so it's one small example, but I hope you understand the point that the way that you phrase a question is very important, and especially when you're phrasing questions to yourself, all right? And so one of the things that I began doing a long time ago is when I wake up at 5 in the morning, I ask myself a series of questions. They're the same questions every morning. They're 5 different questions. And I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again here because this is kind of where it came from, was this idea of asking questions in a particular way. And I ask myself questions. If you want to know what the questions are, you can contact me. Head over to the website at yoursoulsource.com/resources. I'll give you my notes for this book, and I'll give you the questions that I ask myself in the morning. And those questions, I use those questions to boost myself, to boost my mood, and to make sure that I am starting off the day by doing something called protecting my peace. And that's something that I learned from a guy named Trent Shelton, another author and speaker, and just a fabulous, wonderful man. And The Greatest You, I think was the name of his book. I'm sure now, The Greatest You, which is one we will do here on the channel for sure. That's a huge book that changed my life and changed a lot of people's lives, and that's why he's where he is. But I learned from Trent Shelton this idea of protecting your peace. So many of us, we get up in the morning and what do? And this is what I used to do. What do? We grab our phone. We look at Instagram. We look at the stock market. We look at the news. What does that do? Well, regardless of what's there, it puts us in a position where our mood is now going to be a reflection of what we just looked at and what we're taking in, right? And if you have a rotten experience with that because some kind of bad news came up, or somebody left a hater comment on your Instagram post or something like that, or you check your subscriber count and it dropped by 3, and all these things, right, that are quote unquote negative events, that's going to set you into a certain kind of mood that might be hard to get out of. Maybe you can do it, maybe you can't, but why even take the chance? Start yourself off the way you want to start off, all right? You get to dictate that. And so the action step I have for you is to develop some questions of your own. This was a life changer for me. And so you don't have to do them in the morning first thing if you don't want to, but that's what I recommend, because again, the point is to ask yourself questions that you love to answer, all right? Questions that are fun to answer for you, all right? And so one of mine, I'll just give you one. One of mine is, what do I have to get excited about today? And so I list all the things, and I ask these things out loud. I stand in front of a mirror sometimes I don't, it depends. Again, I'm a little kooky, I understand, that's okay. But I ask myself these questions out loud, and I answer them out loud. all the things that I have to get excited about today, right? Things that I get to look forward to throughout my day. And that just that one question alone, if you just ask yourself that one question, think of how it would change things, right? Now you go to make your coffee, you get up out of bed, you get started in your day, you go walk the dog, whatever, and your mood is completely different because you controlled it, right? So I hope that makes sense. And I got a little bit off topic on creativity here, but those questions are really important. And the questions that we ask ourselves and the way that we ask them are very important as well. And you see, in that question, what do I have to get excited about today? It already makes the assumption that there are things today to get excited about, right? So I'm putting myself in a frame where I am now thinking about the stuff that I get to get excited about today, right? And that's super fun. And shooting these videos is one of them. So our brains really are potentially infinite, okay? And infinite, finite, whatever. If you want to nitpick about, well, there's a certain finite number of molecules and all that, okay, fine. But in terms of practicality, our brains are infinite resources, okay? And the more you use your brain, the stronger it gets, right? And as Brian Tracy says in the chapter, your brain is like a muscle, all right? It's not a muscle, okay? So don't misunderstand what's being said. Don't misconstrue it. He's not a doctor, but he also is smart enough to know that you do not have muscles in your brain, okay? But it is like a muscle, meaning that the more you use it, the stronger it gets, right? Just like when you go to the gym and you lift and you get stronger and you stop lifting for 6 months, and then what happens? You're not as strong as you used to be, right? Your body starts to atrophy back down. So you got to keep going to the gym. You got to keep working out, right? And if you do keep working out and you keep pushing yourself, then you can grow, right? Those muscles. That's what you got to do with your brain too. Use your brain and push yourself, right? And that way you can grow your brain and your brain will get stronger. And then guess what? You have more creativity and you're thinking a certain way and you're doing things differently, right? And you're getting different results, okay? So creativity, he closes out the chapter talking about how creativity is not like, it's not just for inventions. It's not just for writing poetry or something. He doesn't name those things specifically, but that it is a big time, creativity is a big time factor when it comes to improvement. And in fact, he likens creativity to improvement, essentially, and says whenever you are improving things for yourself, whenever you are improving your life, you are using your creativity for your benefit, right? Because improvements have to do with creativity. Improvements are changes for the better, right? You can't change something unless you are using some form of creativity to do it, right? So, and discipline, which we talked about in the last chapter. So, unlocking your inborn creativity is a massive component to success and to becoming a self-made millionaire. And again, creative thinking comes from our important goals, the goals that mean a lot to us, right? Our pressing problems and our focused questions. And of the three, to me, the questions are the biggest thing. The questions are the things you can control. You can ask yourself whatever questions you want to ask. And if you are asking yourself questions like, why does this bleep always happen to me? Why does nothing ever work out for me? Why am I always at the bottom? Think about that and start asking yourself some different questions. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, okay? Because this is all of this stuff that I talk about. This is all personal experience. And this book that I'm going through here, chapter by chapter, I've read many, many, many times in my life, and I've listened to the audio, not just the one chapter over and over, but I've listened to the audio over and over too. And it's a powerful book for change and for improvement in your life. And creativity is where that improvement comes from. So if you've gotten something out of this video here, throw a like on, share this video with someone else who might appreciate it as well. You can subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And of course, I love comments. But most important of all, head over to the website, yoursoulsource.com/resources. The link is here. You can get on over there and sign up for the email newsletter, and then you will be a part of the community. And that's where the magic happens, because that's where everybody gets together and compares notes and talks about these kinds of things that we're talking about here together. And you can get all kinds of new ideas, not just from me, not just from Brian Tracy, but from a whole bunch of other success-oriented, like-minded people. So I'll see you over there, and I will see you next in chapter 17.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.